You're listening to the Spooky Darlings, where three sisters share all kinds of fascinating things. I'm Emily.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Nettie.
And today, Nettie's sharing a surprise story with us. We don't have any information on it. Nettie, what are you going to tell us about?
All right. Well, I'm going to start by setting the scene. And yes, I have a printed copy again, so you will be hearing my papers rustling. It'll add to the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't wait to tell you guys about this. This story involves ghosts, the occult, life after death, reincarnation, possession, and a haunted house, amongst other things. So buckle up, my dear buttercups. Picture this. 1912, Paris. That's French for Paris. A woman is sitting alone in her apartment one evening. She's a poet. She's a published author. She has spent her life around words. So she's no stranger to the sudden creative urge to get out your pencil or pen and write whatever fills your heart or fills your mind. The epiphany where you suddenly have to write it down or you might lose it. But what came over her on this evening was something different. Instead of an urge that came from her heart or from her mind, she felt something that she had never felt before. She picked up her pencil, and she doesn't really know why because there was no idea in her head, and she began writing. She felt physically compelled to write, and her hand started moving, and she was not moving her own hand. She's not even looking at the paper. In her own words, she said it felt like her hand had been seized from the outside. By the time she was done writing, there was a complete personal message. It was like a letter, but it was from the point of view of someone else entirely. And at the end of it, a signature was just one letter, X. And that's where we're starting today. Before we meet the main characters of the story, I want to take you to a spooky location. The location is in Highland Park, Los Angeles. And to this day, right now, there's a Victorian-style mansion, and it is on the National Historic Registry of Historic Homes. It's really old. It's one of the oldest houses in the neighborhood, and it has the best view. So it can't be torn down. It can't be changed a ton. It just has to be well-maintained. And it's gorgeous. It's Queen Anne style. It's got steep roof line, gabled, decorations on it. It's very beautiful. And it looks like a haunted house. You look at it and you're like, oh yes, there are definitely ghosts in that house. It's been there since 1887, and it's called El Mio, and it's also known as the Smith House, but its original name, El Mio, was given to it by the man who built it. And if you are a horror movie person, you might actually recognize it. I know Emily is not so much a horror movie person, although you have seen your fair share, but Haley, have you seen a movie called Spider Baby?
No, I've never even heard of it until today.
And it is also known as the Attack of the Liver Eaters, but Spider Baby is a way better name. So I did include a photo for you guys of the house and of photo from Spider Baby. It's a cult horror comedy. It's now on top of my list of movies to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Another movie called The Silent Scream, which was a 1980 film. And I've heard of The Silent Scream, but I've never watched it. Have you heard of it?
I've not.
I know the titles from back in the Blockbuster days when, you'd know that you were never allowed to rent any of those movies, but you'd stop and peruse the aisles anyway of the horror.
Oh my gosh, I used to scare myself so bad just walking through the horror section at Blockbuster, but I couldn't not walk through
No, you
the horror
had
section
to
at
do
Blockbuster.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. Until I was old enough to start sneak renting them. But yeah, I remember the movie from that, just from those days. And then the movie Insidious, Chapter 2, which I've seen Insidious Chapter 1. I never watched Chapter 2, although I'd like to.
Let's do it.
We should. It's at the end of Chapter 1, they have to move to a new house because of all the of the first movie. They have to move to a new house because of all the scary things that happened. And so they move to the grandmother's house, and this home, the El Mio home is where they filmed this. And you know, if you're moving into a grandmother's house and it's a Victorian Queen Anne mansion, that it's going to be haunted.
That's law.
Poor choices were made.
It's like they were looking for another scary house.
They were.
Yeah.
They're like, here, I've got one that's affiliated with something called Spider Baby. Are you in or are you out?
They're like, isn't it also affiliated with a film called
Attack of the Liver Eaters?
Attack of the Liver Eaters?
Got him.
Spider Baby's such a better name. Attack of the Liver Eaters, not as good of a name, but definitely top of my list. So Rose Byrne was the actress in Insidious.
I love her.
And she's quoted as saying, quote, "These places they find are very eerie and weird and dark and low-ceilinged, and that for me is very scary." She added, "I just think, how could you live in this house? It's just my sensibility. I'm just way too sensitive for it." So she definitely commented on the film's, like on the setting of the house and the spooky vibe it gave. But I did question the low ceilings because it's a Victorian, and all the Victorians I've ever seen have
Super high.
enormously high ceilings. They're so high.
Maybe she didn't know what she was talking about.
Probably. Rose, we love you, but come on. Was it really low ceilinged? Or did they put in a false ceiling?
Rose, you're losing all of your ceiling height credibility with us.
Well, you used to be the go-to.
And we're devastated.
So, but did you guys see the picture I sent you of the house?
Yeah.
Yes.
My only qualm, I will say, is both of the pictures I sent you, really boring color. As I looked at it, I was like, this
They're
could
black
be
and white.
so... Oh, no.
The last one.
The last
has
one's in
color.
color.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It
Might as well be black and white. It's all black and white except the sky.
I just wish that when people bought those houses, that they were more interesting. Kind of like the painted ladies, like they need to be colorful. That house needs to be colorful. Maybe though I don't know. It's only been used in 3 films, so I don't think it's like a house that's necessarily like commonly used for film. But
Yeah.
Also, though, I think that sometimes you're limited on what colors you can use when you have one of those historic homes. That would be interesting to find out.
And the neighborhood maybe like has rules.
maybe. Okay, so I did complain. This is off topic, but I did complain about the painted ladies to a friend of mine who lived in San Francisco. And she said, well, you might have seen them in the process of being painted. She told me that they actually had rules about the colors they could be, and that before they will apply new paint, that they always like put this gray stuff on them that like keeps the paint. And so she wondered if I saw them, because I saw them when like all of them, or at least like a few of them were shades of gray. And I was so sad to see the painted ladies. But then I looked them up more recently and they were still all boring colors.
Okay,
really bumming you out.
The painted ladies are the Full House houses, right? The ones in the intro to Full House.
Yeah. Whatever happened to responsibility? You know.
Ooh.
Just
Was
in
it
case you needed-
responsibility or predictability?
You know, it's one or the other.
With you, it's responsibility. We can't predict
Wait,
what you're going to see.
Can you give that to us one more time?
Probably only once, due to we don't own the rights. I may have to cut that
time
out.
constraints.
Yes.
But so it actually was up for sale last year in 2025, and it was purchased for $1.6 million. But this is the thing about California, is that it was purchased for $1.6 million, but the listing price was $998,000. And that's just how house sales go in California.
Oh.
They're like, let's list it for this. And then it's like a bidding war, and the price gets higher and higher. And I only know this from watching Selling Sunset.
Yeah.
I should also iterate that it is not a public haunted house or a public haunted attraction. It's a private residence. So don't go knocking on the door going, hi, can we have a tour of your haunted house?
This is a museum, right?
And I think that it's been used. It's a spooky look. It's a spooky feeling, but I couldn't find any reports of people actually saying it was haunted other than it feels haunted and looks haunted. So,
if I showed up, I'd just have a measuring tape to give me credibility and also a way to measure that ceiling height.
yeah, maybe a ladder also. No one says no to someone with a ladder under their arm. That's how the thieves got into the Louvre.
Yeah. Just rented
You're
a
right.
ladder.
So the house definitely has a reputation. And the reputation, it turns out, started with the man who built it. This man was named David Patterson Hatch. And David Hatch was really kind of a remarkable human being. He lived an amazing life. So the house was his idea. In 1887, he wanted to live on kind of the highest point in his neighborhood, which was Highland Park. He named it El Mío, which is Spanish for mine.
Mine.
Yes.
Mhm.
Or my place, perhaps. The street was then eventually named after it. And even after he was gone and stopped living there, which is really interesting because he built the house and he lived for a long time after he sold the house, but he only lived there for like 7-ish years, 6 or 7 years before he sold it to the Smith family. And that's why it's also known as the Smith House. But the most famous name for it is El Mío. So David Hatch had 2 lives. He had a public life and he had a private life. I'm going to tell you about his public life first. He was a bigwig, a big deal in California legal establishment. We get to hear some piano music in the background. He'd been a judge, and he was a really famous one because in the mid-1880s, he presided over one of the most sensational cases in the history of California, where a man, a prospector named Lucky Baldwin, was sued for breach of marriage proposal by a young lady who he had courted and purportedly promised to marry. And my guess is it was one of those cases where he probably talked her into being physical with him and intimate with him with the promise of marriage, and then he backed out, and she was angry, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So she brought proof, and this trial went on. It was super public. Everyone was following it, and everyone was really impressed with how Judge Patterson Hatch, let me tell you his exact full name, Judge David Patterson Hatch. I'll call him Judge Hatch from here on. Everyone was really impressed with how he handled it. And just so you know, the young lady who was 15 years old at the time she brought the suit.
All right. How old is Lucky?
I actually don't know how old Lucky was. I did not get his age, but she was indeed awarded $75,000.
Good.
And she brought proof. She brought Lucky's love letters and read them in court. And everyone's like, okay, Lucky.
Wait, how much is $75,000 in today's money?
Would you like to guess?
I would
Don't
like
Google.
to guess.
Don't Google. Just guess.
Well, it's got to be over $1 million, I would guess.
4 million.
Haley guesses $4 million. Emily guesses
3.2 million.
It is $2.43 million,
Man.
which is big money. You guys overshot a little. That's all right. You're going to get
Did.
better at it.
I panicked when Haley said 4, and I was like, well, I've got to get closer.
Jumped too high, but you were still closer than Haley.
Yeah.
So big money. And, without knowing very much about that case, I think that young lady probably deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
So after he finished being a judge, he joined a law firm and just had a great law practice. So he was well known. He was really respected. He was a man of good standing. But that was just his public persona. I don't know why I said but. I would say, indeed, that was his public persona. Because there was another David Hatch, a hidden side to David Hatch that only his closest friends and family knew about. He was also
Wait, was he a spider baby?
philosopher.
Whoa.
He was really into the teachings of theosophy. And if you know about theosophy, we've talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it in the Louisiana Cryptid episode when I talked about the vampire, what was his name? Saint Germain. And talked about how the founders of theosophy say that they got their ideas from him. So we've talked about it. And I'll just kind of give you a short little version. I think you talked about it in a case, maybe. I don't really remember.
Know.
We might have talked about it in the one that Emily kind of almost did about the sisters. That we had sound issues. The sound wasn't good. So
we recorded the Fox sisters and then had to ditch it out.
I think
you should do that again.
We should redo it though.
Maybe.
But so theosophy, this is a very short version of what theosophy is. It was founded in the 1870s by the wild and crazy gal, Haley. You know.
Blavatsky?
Yes, Blavatsky.
Okay.
I was like, I think I know it. I watched you go, I think I know it. Am I right? By Helena Blavatsky. And it taught, amongst many other things, that the universe is fundamentally spiritual, that human souls travel through many lives, that there are hidden laws governing existence, and that death is not an ending, but a transition. And so these ideas were everywhere in certain circles at the turn of the century. And people were kind of secretive about them because although when you look at it, it's not really anti-Christian. It scared a lot of people with fundamental Christian beliefs. They were a little bit afraid of it.
Wasn't it like heavily used in the spiritual community? Okay.
Like the spiritualism movement, right?
Yes, heavily used in the spiritualism movement. There are definitely like two circles that overlap, creating a Venn diagram. So, and, I think that when people think of occultism, they think of the scary parts. I mean, I always did as a kid. If someone talked about the occult, I immediately thought of like Ouija boards, conjuring the dead, demons, possession, things like that, communing with spirits. But in reality, the main message in teaching is that there's just more to our human existence and that we're eternal beings. And there's an AI overview of theosophy that I just decided to include. It says the main message of theosophy. I basically Googled what's the main message of theosophy, and it said that all life is fundamentally one, originating from a single divine source. So to me, that very much like works with Christianity and with other religious.
Very inclusive.
Yeah, religious philosophies. It's like, a single being, kind of like God the creator, although in theosophy, they don't refer to it as God. They think of it as a single divine source, and that all human beings are interconnected, promoting the core principles of universal brotherhood and spiritual evolution. It posits an ancient wisdom that reveals the spiritual nature of the universe. So David Hatch was deep into these ideas. Why are you guys laughing?
Because he said poses.
You keep pronouncing posits, but it's okay.
And Emily and I just looked at each other and...
Okay, I know I did this in Massachusetts cryptids with Preston posits. I like the word posits better. I just do.
Hey, listen, this is
your
how
time.
we change. This is how we make change. Let's just change it.
I don't know if I will. I want you to know that as a music major, that I have pronounced the word timbre for years, and I may have just mixed them up there.
I think I've lost my confidence in how it's pronounced entirely.
I think it's timbre, and I always say timbre, but it's spelled timber. That's why it's so confusing.
It is confusing, and you're justified in any pronunciation you feel as an artist.
Pronunciations should be more about feeling.
Just wish that you would just go timber every time.
Timbre.
I think it's timbre, but I can't say that with confidence.
Might be timbre. I know that it's what you think it wouldn't be.
Oh,
nice.
Then it's probably
but I wouldn't
timber.
think it would be timbre or timber. Oh, okay, we've got to move on. All right. So, David Hatch, he was like a big deal in these circles. He wrote about them. He published books with titles like Scientific Occultism, The Blood of the Gods, and The 20th Century Christ. He wrote a novel under a Hindu pen name called El Rashid, a novel by Paul.
You've got so many musicians in your background.
By Paul Karishka. Yes, my daughter's home from college. She's a music major. So there's really nothing I can do about the sound you're going to hear. Let's pretend they're a lovely accompaniment. He taught philosophy, and those who knew him said that he was like a Western spiritual master. Like a lot of people looked to him for guidance, for answers, on thoughts. And he loved to just like sit around with his friends that were like-minded and just discuss the possibilities. So when he died in 1912, the LA Times called him a remarkable man who was exceptionally versed in the deep philosophies of life and who had obtained a deep knowledge of universal laws, which, although natural to himself, appeared as mysticism to those who had not followed his great mental strides. But his closest friends had a nickname for him, and I shan't tell you that nickname yet. Wait for it. Okay, now, back to our girl from Paris who was writing. Elsa Barker. Elsa was born in 1869 in Leicester, Vermont, and it was like a tiny little town, and she actually lost both of her parents while she was still very young. I could not get an age that she was orphaned at, but it said that she raised herself and worked very hard, so I'm assuming she was old enough to be on her own. But she learned to work, and she worked in writing. She started as a shorthand reporter, and then she worked as a teacher, a newspaper writer. She edited encyclopedias. She worked for the New York Board of Education as a lecturer.
Wow.
She was on the editorial staff of Hampton's magazine, and she authored what was called a labor play called The Scab, produced in New York and Boston. And she wrote a novel called The Son of Mary Bethel, and she was super busy, like really a self-sufficient lady who knew how to work hard. Now, she had an interest that she inherited from her father. He had been interested in the occult, and he planted that seed of interest in Elsa. And as she grew older, she started to pursue that interest a bit and became a member of the Theosophical Society, the same society that Judge Hatch was a member of. But they lived kind of on opposite ends of the country because she was in, Vermont, and he was over on the West Coast in the California area, but they still were in the same circles. So she was also like a person who considered herself a skeptic. She was very interested in talking about like the theosophical beliefs, but she wasn't one that was into a lot of the spiritualism things. Like she didn't want to talk to a medium. She didn't want to participate in like the, fortune telling sessions, or what are they called?
Seances.
Yeah, seances. That's
like
the word.
that. Yeah.
She wasn't into that. She was interested in talking about like, yeah, it might be cool. And probably because her father was interested in it and she lost her parents young, the idea of having more after this life was really comforting to her. But she was pretty much like a skeptic of spiritualism itself. She wrote in the introduction to one of the books that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes that the idea of communicating between the living and the dead always left her quite cold. And there was a famous book at the time called Letters from Julia that was written by a really famous author named William Steed, which was everywhere. And everyone was talking about it like, oh my goodness, this guy communicated with the dead. She had never read the book and wasn't interested in reading the book. And I'm going to tell you really briefly about this guy that wrote this book. So William Steed had always been interested in spiritualism, but he was mostly just like a reporter, like a pretty big deal. He was an editor. So he was on the Titanic when it sank. And but before this, he had written this book, which he claimed that he did automatic writing from a woman named Julia, and the book was called Letters from Julia. And he basically wrote a whole book where he claimed this woman, Julia, came through and spoke to him. He was on the Titanic because he was headed to the United States to be part of a peace congress at Carnegie Hall at the request of President Taft. And so he died on the Titanic, and all the survivors reported that the last dinner before they knew the Titanic was sinking, that he was like enthusiastically chatting and telling stories, and that he had everyone like in the palm of his hand because he was such a great storyteller. And then he went to bed. And then after the ship struck the iceberg and people were out on board, he spent his evening helping women and children getting into lifeboats. They watched him give his life jacket to another passenger. And he was cited. Okay, so this was a survivor named Philip Mock said that the last sighting of him, he was clinging to the outside of a raft because the rafts were full. So he and Jacob Astor were clinging together to the outside of a raft until they got so cold that they like lost consciousness and let go. And I think Jacob Astor's body was recovered, but William Steed's body was never recovered. And what's kind of crazy is that he had written several articles in newspapers about shipwrecks. And he had published 2 pieces that like got a ton of attention after the Titanic sank, because one of them was called How the Mail Steamer Went Down in the Mid-Atlantic by a Survivor, where he recounts the story from a survivor where a steamer collides with another ship, resulting in like almost everyone dying or a bunch of people dying due to an insufficient ratio of lifeboats to passengers.
Oh, man.
And so he actually was quoted as saying, this is exactly what might take place and will take place if liners are sent to sea short of lifeboats. Now, he wrote that in like 1980. Okay, so that was 1986. And then in
Do you mean 1886?
Yes, I do. 1886 is when he wrote that. And then in 1892, He wrote another story about a shipwreck called From the Old World to the New, in which a vessel called the Majestic rescues survivors of another ship that collided with an iceberg. The Titanic, if you don't remember, sank in 1912. So he wrote both of these articles well before the Titanic sank and kind of warned of this. He also had told his close friends and family, remember he was deep into the spiritualism movement, that he thought he would die by drowning. And he did. So anyways, that was just like one of those side dives that I took when I was like, oh, now I need to know about this book. Letters from Julia. Let me read about the author. And then I was like, what? He was on the Titanic? What? He died? What? Everyone loved him? Like he seems like a really cool person.
Mm-hmm.
So now back to Elsa Barker. 1910, Elsa moved to Europe from Vermont. She lived in Paris and London, and it sounds like she kind of lived between the two cities. And she lived there for about 4 years. She was writing, she was working, she was just living her best life. And she was born in 1969, so this would make her like in her early 40s around this time. But like in these circles, she was into spiritualism. She was connected within the circles to Judge Hatch. And where I couldn't find a specific incident where she talks about meeting him or talking to him, she does say that she knew of him, possibly knew him and had met him, but that they had never spent time talking, and she had never discussed with him what happens after we die. Like the afterlife had never been discussed. Now, I did send you guys 2 pictures. One is of Elsa Barker. One is of Judge Hatch. So you may look at them if you'd like. So then came that fateful evening in 1912 in Paris, where she felt compelled to write, and it was different. Yeah, isn't she beautiful? And it was different than anything she'd ever felt. So I'm going to actually use Elsa's words to tell you what happened.
Ooh, that's a mustache.
Oh, on Judge Hatch, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is her talking. One night last year in Paris, I was strongly impelled to take up a pencil and write, though what I was to write about, I had no idea. So she picks up the pencil. Yielding to the impulse, my hand was seized as if from the outside, and a remarkable message of a personal nature came. And at the end of it all, it was signed with one letter, X. So she reads the letter, and she's like, what is this? I have no idea what this means. The message is clear, but the signature, it's not ringing a bell. She does not know who X is. So she shows it to a friend. And she's like, do you have any idea, like, what this is? Like, explains to the friend what happened to her. Her friend is also into the spiritualism movement and into all of this. So her friend is very much like, open to this. And her friend was like, well, don't you know that that's what we all call Judge Hatch?
I was going to guess. I was going to ask if it was Judge Hatch.
Yes. Elsa.
Wait, was he still alive at this time?
Well, Emily, I'm about to tell you. No, he wasn't. But I'll tell you that right now. That's the next part of the story. So Elsa did not know. She had never heard Judge Hatch called that. And as far as anyone knew, Judge Hatch was alive. He was 6,000 miles away in the Americas, in the United States, but he was alive. And he was also like such a prominent figure that had he died, word would have spread. So there was no reason to think anything had happened to him. But then, literally like 2 days later, a letter comes. So remember, this is 1912. The letter was, Judge David P. Hatch is dead. He died in the western part of the United States. And that's all it said. But as far as Elsa knew, she was one of the first people in Europe to be informed of his death. So she realized that she had received that compulsion to do the automatic writing shortly after his death.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes and she tells her friend. Her friend's not surprised. Her friend actually said, when you showed me this letter, my first thought was, this is Judge Hatch, and he is dead, and we just don't know about it yet. So Elsa wrote this letter from the point of view of a dead man that she didn't even know had died, and who she knew but wasn't good friends with. Really, really chilling. But a few nights later, her friend was like, well, if Judge Hatch tried to write through you, do you think he would try again? Do you think that you could sort of try, see if you can
Channel him.
kind of channel him, let him write through you again? And so Elsa cleared her mind, sat down, grabbed a pencil, and these are the first words that came through her. I am here, make no mistake. And that is the beginning of one of the most extraordinary correspondences in the history of the supernatural. That was the beginning. And then over the following year, Elsa and Judge Hatch basically had a correspondence, and then she published his letters into 3 different books called Letters from a Living Dead Man, War Stories from a Living Dead Man, and Last Letters from a Living Dead Man. Those were the 3 books. And I want to tell you about like how the sort of the evolution happened, because when she first would do the automatic writing, where Judge Hatch would sort of, take her over and she would feel compelled to write, she would be sore the next day. She said it was almost violent, that her arm would be hurting and she had no control over its movement, and that she would be sore. But then after a while, it became almost more like a dictation in her inner ear, where she was actually hearing the words and then physically writing them. Whereas when she started, she wasn't hearing it. It just was like her physically writing it. But she said she could feel his presence, and she always knew that when it was about to start. She said she never planned for it. She never called on him. He simply arrived, and she would feel his presence, and then she would sort of like relax and sort of allow him to take control. And she described it as the subtle vibration of the actual thinking and feeling presence. She would pick up her pencil and let him kind of like, felt like she had to give permission. She would just sort of like let him write through her.
Wow.
And he wrote over 100 letters through her.
So, okay, help me understand. Was she, in these books, was she writing back? Like, he would write the letter and she would write back on a separate piece of paper, and it was like that kind of correspondence?
So
or was it all just him writing through her?
I believe it was all him writing through her, but then she would ask him questions, and he would say that he could almost read her mind. So if she had a thought, he would sometimes answer the thought before she would even like say it out loud, but she wasn't writing him letters back.
Okay.
She was as far as I know, she was like, would speak out loud to him or think things to him, and then he would kind of answer her queries.
Okay, gotcha. Did you guys remember reading that book? It was like, I think probably like I don't know, like for a middle school age, but it was a scary book about these children that were like not that good at stuff, but then they'd go to this special school where they would be channeled by like a famous composer, and they'd like have nightmares about music and then like wake up having like played and written stuff that they couldn't actually physically play, that like they couldn't do it on their own. Do you remember this book?
No, but I want to read it
No.
now.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name, and it gave me nightmares. Remember the nightmare I used to have with the loud note playing repeatedly until I would wake up sweating?
Yes.
I do remember you.
That was like after I read that book.
Has
But this reminds me of that.
Has it ever occurred to you that you were being channeled by some
Maybe
composer getting you to play one note over and over again?
Probably. They're like,
Whoa.
you gotta hear more of this note. No, I wish I could remember what the name of the book was. I
Yeah.
cannot.
No.
Listeners, if you know what book Emily is talking about, email us at thespookydarlings@gmail.com.
There's a Reddit thread that I follow that's like, what's that book? Where people describe a book and like give, like, so you'd basically say, I read it during these years. You'd give the years. This is what I remember. The title might have this word in it. The cover looked like this, and people will
Help
solve
you
it
find
for
it.
you. It's so much fun.
Reddit is such a great
love that Reddit.
resource for that. Yeah.
Oh, it's been a while since I've perused. I think it's called What's That Book?
Yeah, I think so.
It's a good Reddit.
It's a good one.
That's a fun one. Okay, so I'm going to read you. I'm going to read you his first 4 letters. They're short, verbatim, and then I'm going to kind of summarize, because there's 100. I can't read all 100, although I could read all 100, just not on the pod.
Everybody take a seat, get cozy. Nettie's going to read.
But I do want to say you can find the entire collection of the letters on a website called the Gutenberg Project, and then you just put in just put in Letters from a Dead Man, and you'll find all 3 books, or put in Elsa Barker, or put in Judge David Patterson Hatch, and the stories will come up, and they're free. And they're honestly, it is so fascinating. I did not want to stop reading. When I tried to get them like online, I tried to find them through Libby, and the first collection was out and not available. And then I tried to find them like on Audible, and I couldn't find them on Audible. Or no, I could find them on Audible, but they were, going to cost me a credit. But then I found them for free on the Gutenberg Project, so that was cool.
Yay.
So here's the first letter. Now, this is the first letter. From what I gather, this was the second attempt. I actually am not completely sure if this is the first letter that he wrote that was just signed X, or if this was the first letter after her friend was like, "Can you try again?" I couldn't figure that out. Okay, so here it is. Letters from a Living Dead Man. Letter 1. The Return. I am here, make no mistake. It was I who spoke before, and I now speak again. That might be our clue that this is the second attempt. Whispering means it's me, Jeanette. If I speak out loud, it's the letter.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. I can see you. Whoops. Wrong part. I have had a wonderful experience. Much that I had forgotten, I can now remember. What has happened was for the best. It was inevitable. I can see you, though not very distinctly. I've found almost no darkness. The light here is wonderful, far more wonderful than the sunlight of the south. No, I cannot yet see my way very well around Paris. Everything is different. It is probably by reason of your own vitality that I am able to see you at this moment. X. Letter 2. Tell no man. I am opposite to you now in actual space. That is, I am directly in front of you resting on something which is probably a couch or divan. It is easier to come to you after dark. I remembered on going out that you might be able to let me speak through your hand. I am already stronger. It is nothing to fear, this change of condition. I cannot tell you yet how long I was silent. It did not seem long. It was I who signed X. The teacher helped me to make the connection. And connection is spelled with an X, like conexion.
Oh,
You
it's
had-
got an X thing.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Signed X and connexion. You had better tell no one for a while, except that I have come, as I do not want any obstructions to my coming when and where I will. Lend me your hand sometimes. I will not misuse it. It kind of reminded me, okay, this is me, Jenna, again. This kind of reminded me of when we were talking about shadow people in the Hat Man. And my friend Tim wrote in and talked about the Hat Man asking if he could borrow his heart. Remember?
Yeah,
This
that was so
almost-
freaky, though.
I know, it's so scary.
Creepy.
He's fine, though. Tim's fine. I've communicated with him since then. He's around. He's good. But just sort of like, let me use your hand. I won't misuse it. I don't know. It just was a kind of almost that same feeling. Okay, so continuing with the letter. I'm going to stay out here until I am ready to come back with power. Watch for me, but not yet. Things seem easier to me now than they have seemed for a long time. I carry less weight. I could have held on longer in the body, but it did not seem worth the effort. I have seen the teacher. He is near. His attitude to me is very comforting.
Oh.
But I would like to go now. Good night. I thought that one was interesting. When he says, I would like to come back, I'm going to stay here now until I'm ready to come back with power. I think he's talking about coming back for a second life. Like he's going to stay here kind of in the in-between, I guess, or maybe our lives are the in-between. Like, who knows?
He's going to be real sad that Twitter is now X and everybody's going to be so confused.
Maybe Twitter is him. Maybe he's Elon Musk.
I hope not.
I hope not.
I hope not too. Okay, so letter 3, guarding the door. And in this one, he kind of gives her a warning. You need to take certain precautions to protect yourselves against those who press around me. You have only to lay a spell upon yourself night and morning. Nothing can get through that wall, nothing which you forbid your soul to entertain. Do not let any of your energy be sucked out of you by these larvae of the astral world. No, they cannot annoy me, for I am now used to the idea of them. You have absolutely nothing to fear if you protect yourself. So I thought that was interesting because he's basically
Larva.
saying he's in this in-between space. It's beautiful. It's light. But the use of the word larva tells me that he's not talking about other humans. I don't know.
Aliens.
Maybe. Bugs? Larva? Okay, letter 4. A cloud on the mirror. So, and it starts with, after a sentence had been half written, the writing suddenly stopped and was continued later. And then he continues, when you respond to my call, wipe clean your mind as a child wipes its slate when ready for a new maxim or example by its teacher. Your lightest personal thought or fancy may be as a cloud upon a mirror, blurring the reflection. You can receive letters by this means, provided your mind does not begin to work independently to question in the midst of the writing. So it kind of reminds me of like meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and this is like when people are saying if you want to open yourself up to like spiritual communication, if you want to open yourself up to like being able to talk with ghosts or like being a medium, like people are saying anyone can do it, but it really starts with clearing your mind, kind of like meditation. And people have said who have been able to like develop the ability to see things like in the astral plane or to see things in like the fourth dimension have said that they've started with meditation and with just that constant clearing of the mind. Then he says, I was not stopped this time as before by beings gathering round, but by your own curiosity as to the end of an unusual sentence. You suddenly became positive instead of negative, as if the receiving instrument in a telegraph office should begin to send a message of its own. I have learned here the reason for many psychic things which formerly puzzled me, and I am determined, if possible, to protect you from the danger of cross-currents in the work. There was one night when I called, and you would not let me in. Was that kind? Hey, back off, buddy.
Yeah, it's a little entitled there, son.
Sometimes people are busy. X.
Yeah, listen, Mr. Judge. But then he says, but I am not reproaching you. I shall come again and again until my work is done. I will come to you in a dream before long and will show you many things. So then, those are the only 4 I'm going to read you in their entirety. But in the following letters, and remember, he wrote over 100 letters, he describes like where he is, which isn't heaven in a traditional sense, because there's not like angels or harps or like a stairway or a gate, with St. Peter looking for your name on a list. But he said it's more like a continuation of life. He actually said that everything that's in our physical realm is in the spiritual realm, but it's like more subtle. And everything, like the things, they're almost like we're coexisting, but the things that are here, there's a spiritual reflection of everything. Every physical thing here, there's a spiritual reflection of it. Like even inanimate objects like this microphone or like, my sister, you're not inanimate.
Never.
No.
I'm real.
He said it's like a continuation of life. And you don't become something else when you die. You are the same. You're still you, but you're lighter. Then there was a chapter called Where Souls Go Up and Down, basically talks about death. And he starts it with, my friend, there is nothing to fear in death. It is no harder than a trip to a foreign country. The first trip, to one who has grown oldish and settled in the habits of his own more or less narrow corner of the world. When a man comes out here, the strangers whom he meets seem no more strange than the foreign peoples seem to one who first goes among them. He does not always understand them there. Again, his experience is like a sojourn in a foreign country, but then after a while, he begins to make friendly advances and to smile with the eyes. The question, where are you from, meets with a similar response to that on earth. One is from California, another is from Boston, another is from London. This is where we meet on the high roads of travel, for there are lanes of travel over here where the souls go up and down as on the earth. Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And then
the larva's just directing traffic?
I don't know what the larva are doing.
Yeah. Has on a hat, has a whistle. It's like, beep, beep, you stop. You go that way.
You may go. So then I thought this part was interesting because he says, sometimes one settles down for a long time in one place. So this is Judge Hatch speaking, I visited an old home in the state of Maine where a man on this side of life had been stopping for I do not know how many years. He told me that the children had grown to be men and women, and that a colt to which he became attached to when he first came out had grown into a horse and had died of old age, which I just thought that was so interesting because Judge Hatch is saying he just went and hung out in an old house that was just a buddy of his up in like his, the in-between astral plane space told him about. So he went and spent time there.
When you said a cult he had grown fond of, I was
Same.
like,
I thought you meant...
he joined a religion over there?
Yes, same. I was like, one of those cults that I grew quite fond of.
I should have said a foal, but those were his words. Yeah. He should have said a foal.
He shoulda.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
And now this is interesting because you kind of think that like once we die, everyone's just like their best selves, and anyone who was like really terrible on earth is probably like, I'm now my spiritual being and I'm wonderful and perfect. But he actually says there are sluggards and dull people here, as with you. There are also brilliant and magnetic people whose very presence is rejuvenating. So it seems almost absurd to say that we wear clothes the same as you do, but we do not seem to need so many. I haven't seen any trunks, but then I've only been here a short time. Heat and cold. I thought this part was really interesting because when we think of ghosts or experiencing spirits here in our physical world, we think of cold, like there was a cold spot. That room became very cold. And he actually does explain that in a different letter. But he says, heat and cold do not matter to me much now, though I remember at first being rather uncomfortable by reason of the cold. But that is past. Which that would be the thing I'm most nervous about is being cold. I'd be like, I don't want to be cold for a while. I want to be warm. Okay, so I'm going to read a part of another letter where she had asked the question about if spirits eat and drink and what they eat and drink. So this is kind of coming in the middle of a letter called A Rendezvous in the Fourth Dimension. So he's, I guess, calling the space the fourth dimension. I can tell you many things about the life out here which may be of use to others when they make the great change. So that's death. Almost everyone brings memory over with him. The men and women I have met and communed with have had more or less vivid recollection of their earth life. That is, most of them. You have been curious, perhaps, as to what we eat and drink. If anything, we certainly are nourished, and we seem to absorb much water. You also should drink plenty of water. It feeds the astral body. I do not think that a very dry body would ever have enough astral vitality to lend a hand to a soul on this plane of life, as you are doing now. There is much moisture in our bodies over here. Perhaps that is one reason why contact with a so-called spirit sometimes give warm-blooded persons a sense of cold, and they shiver. Isn't that crazy?
Whoa.
To think that spirit, like he's basically saying the spirits do have a physical form and that it's largely comprised of water. And he's telling us to drink water. He's like, guys, you can't help us if you're not hydrated.
Right.
That makes me wonder if that's why I've never had a ghost experience really a very good one, because I'm dehydrated.
Yeah.
I'm hydrating right now with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did find the name of the book, Down a Dark Hall by Lois Duncan.
Perfect.
I did read that book.
Oh, you did?
I don't think I remembered the music part.
That was the whole part.
I did read that book, but I did not remember the entire premise.
I did read other books by Lois Duncan. Didn't she write Wait Till Helen Comes?
I don't know.
That's a scary book.
It is.
Okay, so then he says, it is something of an effort on my part also to write like this, but it seems to be worthwhile. So it's like a lot of the things that we expect spirits to do, like during like ghost sensing sessions, take a tremendous amount of energy for them. And he also talks, I don't remember if this is a part that I'm reading, but he talked about how if he spent time in the astral realm with another rejuvenating spirit, that he had more energy to do the communication with Elsa. So he'd be like, I have a lot of energy today because I spent time with another rejuvenating spirit that gave me a lot of strength.
That old saying of careful who you surround yourself by.
What are you looking for now? Are you looking up who wrote Wait Till Helen Comes?
Yeah, it wasn't Lois Duncan.
Who was it?
But she did write I Know What You Did Last Summer, which might be what you're thinking of.
That's another very scary book.
That was Mary Downing Hahn.
Mary Downing Hahn. She was the other. She was basically like Lois Duncan 2.0.
Yeah.
She's good. I love Mary Downing Hahn books are scary. Okay.
Keep that in.
He then says, sometimes the writing is stopped suddenly in the midst of a sentence. This is part of the same letter, but later I skipped a few paragraphs. Sometimes the writing is stopped suddenly in the midst of a sentence. That was when I was not properly focused. You may have noticed when reversing and shutting away the outside world that a sudden noise or maybe a wandering thought would bring you right out again. It is so here. So it's kind of like he's saying the same ADHD struggles you have on Earth. Guess what? Guess what? You have them here too.
Wonderful, because we are all very entertaining.
And then, okay, this part was important to me. So let me, read this part. Now, about this element in which we live, it is undoubtedly It undoubtedly has a place in space, for it is all around the Earth. Yes, every tree visible has its invisible counterpart. Oh, this is what I was talking about earlier. When you, before sleep, come out consciously into this world, he's meaning his world, the astral world, you see things that exist or have existed in the material world. The material world being the physical world that we live in as living humans. You cannot see anything in this world which has not a physical counterpart in the other. There are, of course, thought pictures, imaginary pictures, but to see imaginatively is not to see on the astral plane, not by any means. The things you see before going to sleep have real existence, but by changing your rate of vibration, you come out into this world, or rather you go back into this world, for you have to go in order to come out. And then right there, she makes a footnote about hypagogic or gogic hallucinations, which is interesting because when people have used that as like, they use it as an explanation, like, oh, I know what happened. I thought that I saw a ghost or a shadow person, but it's a hypagogic hallucination. I've always been like, no, that's just when your mind is most open to seeing things in the other dimension. That's always how I felt. And that's basically what he's saying, is that those moments are when you're able to actually flip it and sort of see what's happening on the astral plane and in the fourth dimension. Imagination has great power. If you make a picture in the mind, the vibrations of the body may adjust to it if the will is directed that way, as in thoughts of health or sickness. So he's basically talking about manifestation. Like imagine it, and things will sort of vibrate and work around it, make it come. And then he says, I wonder if you could see me just before falling asleep. You should come out here with that thought and that desire dominant in your mind. I am strong today because I have been, I was like, I don't remember if I talk about this. I do. I'm strong today because I have been long with one who is stronger. And if you want to make the experiment of trying to find me this night, I may be able to help you better than another time. Anyway, that's all for this letter. But one cool thing he talked about was a man who, died and came into the astral plane. And then he spent his time in the astral plane building a mansion for his wife so that when she would come there, they'd have a mansion together. Isn't that sweet?
Cute.
It was like a mansion in the heavens, and it became their home for that time that they're in that astral world together.
Cute.
And he talks about dreams, especially dreams about the dead. They always mean something. So do not disregard your dreams about the dead. And he talks about light. He says to Elsa, I see you often as a spot of vivid light, and that is probably when your soul is active with feeling or your mind is keen with thought. And he says it makes it easier for him to visit if she goes quiet. If she's really busy and her mind's on a lot of things, he can't find an in,
Keep it vapid, my girl.
Yeah, come on. Meditate. It is when you are passive that we can reach you. When your mind and body are always occupied, it is difficult to impress you with any messages of the soul. Find a little more time each day for doing nothing at all, which I just think is a good advice for your mind in general, just to rest. It's so hard, though, especially, and I think that our minds are even busier than they used to be, because if we have any downtime, like when we were kids, we didn't have, the cell phones or the iPads to immediately occupy us, or we could think about you have a thought, you can grab your phone and you can look up something or clarify something. We spent a lot of time laying around imagining things.
Yeah.
And he talks about how that's a really good and beautiful thing to do. And it's something that you actually get to do a lot of in the fourth dimension when you die and when you go into the
well, that's when I'm going to get all the downtime I need.
Finally, yes. When you die. You'll rest when you die.
Yeah, except all the larvae everywhere. That part might not be as restful.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. He doesn't talk much more about that I know of, but I haven't read all 100 letters. In fact, I've only read maybe 10 of the letters. So he says basically that you die, but he said it's almost like you're coming home, and that in between space is sort of the real space, and that people spend a lot of time there, and you can kind of pick the amount of time you spend there. A lot of people will just stay for a really long time until they're just done and ready, kind of like how some people live into a ripe old age and, are like, any day now, I'd love to die, kind of like that kind of thing, like when they get in there, like you talk to a 104-year-old lady and they're like, just waiting.
Just want to
go to husband.
I remember Grandma Rampton being like that. She would just say, just waiting to meet Henry.
Oh,
It was so sad.
it
Mm-hmm.
was so sad.
Love them.
And happy because she did eventually.
Yeah.
So basically he says he has a plan. He wants to come back. So this is his quote. He says, I believe, but I am not quite sure that I can bring back much of this knowledge with me when I am born again. So born again meaning reincarnated, not like born again, like, born again Christian, but reincarnation. And he deliberately is planning his reincarnation, and he's going to try to bring all his knowledge back with him because, what an amazing life you could lead if you just knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, I shall not do as many souls do. They stay out here until they are tired of this world, as they formerly were tired of earth, and then they are driven back half unconsciously by the irresistible force of the tide of rhythm. I want to guide that rhythm. And he even tells her that he's going to try to let her know when and where to look for him. And I didn't read enough of it to find out if he actually did communicate with this with her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So he said, I used to shrink from what I call death. There are those on this side who shrink from what they call death. Do you know what they call death? It is rebirth into the world. So he's saying when they're there and they die, again, they're coming back here. He said, yes, even so. Wow, that's crazy.
Oh, great. I have to be a baby again.
I just can't. I'm trying to imagine someone trying to use me or, like, honestly, either of you for channeling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'd get like a moment, like, when you're trying to like get a moment to say something like to someone who's like has a million people talking to them or something like that, and you're like, I just need a minute to. I feel like the spirits would be like, oh, I just need a quiet moment in her brain. And they'd be like, I am moving on to someone else. Like, can you imagine it? Like, actually completely clearing your mind. Try right now.
It's so hard. I'm always like, wow, this mind is not clear.
I'm like, wipe it like a chalkboard. Oh, whoa, this chalkboard's got dust in the corner.
Oh my God, it's a lot of
Can I
cobwebs
please
up
have
there.
Can I have a damp eraser, please? This dry one's leaving dust. Can I use a whiteboard instead?
I feel like I would just fall asleep because that's when my mind is.
Try it right now. Oh, she's asleep.
She did it.
So, now back to Elsa. Did Elsa believe that Judge Hatch was actually communicating with her? Well, the answer is yes, but she didn't believe it blindly. She was constantly interrogating the experience, and she actually was very skeptical about it. And during the second book she wrote, which was called The War Letters from a Living Dead Man, she started in the introduction where she said she asked herself again and again whether this could just be her own subconscious mind creating a narrative. And she really takes the skeptical position seriously. And she concludes, this is her, so quote, I now feel safe in assuming that I know the difference between the actual presence of X and my own imagination of him. And when she published the first book, she did not release the identity of Judge Hatch. She just said, I've been receiving communication from a man who is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And here are the letters. But she did send a copy to Judge Hatch's son, and he was like, yep, 100%, that's my father.
Wow.
He believed it from the get-go, 100%, and publicly stated it. And so I think by the time the second book was released, after she had kind of gotten like the blessing from Judge Hatch's son, at least, is when she released his identity.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think?
Wow. That's really cool.
It's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I guess I think I'm pretty skeptical about
You just like Elsa.
these kinds of things. Yeah.
Elsa was too.
Yeah.
You should try it.
Maybe I will.
Yeah. That'd be really crazy to have that experience. I mean, I feel like I've had, paranormal experiences, but certainly never something like taking over my body.
The closest I can think of is that game that we used to play where one of us would have the head and the other person would have the arms and be putting makeup on your face without being able to see. That's kind of what it feels.
You know what? I was actually really good at that. Maybe that means I'd be good at the automatic writing thing.
You might be.
You
I
just
think
clear that mind, girl.
Just need to hydrate and try again.
Yeah. Hydration is key. So Elsa, she lived until she was 85 years old, and she only published 3 volumes of Hatch's letters. And then, as far as I know, she stopped receiving communication from him, or at least communication that she was willing to release to the public.
So she
But-
lived in this plane to 85 years old.
85 years old in the physical realm. But she wrote detective novels in her later years. So
Oh.
I did not look them up, but I want to. In fact, let's do it
Yeah.
right now. Oh, here it is. Couldn't find my phone.
Where?
Elsa Barker.
Elsa Barker, detective novels. I want to read one.
Yeah.
On the pod?
Yes. For my next episode, I will do it. No.
And now this is a detective novel reading podcast. 1 chapter per episode.
She did write like journals about her experience of writing letters from a dead man.
Mm-hmm.
The Cobra Candlestick. The CID of Dexter Drake. That one looks like a magazine. Oh, it's a hardcover. Like, but it's
Okay.
clearly a very old
Oh, all right.
publishing.
Yeah. Man, what
Ooh,
a
You
wild
Sit Down a Dark
experience.
Hall.
And not proof, but just like the son saying, yes, that's my dad. Her friend, knowing who the man is that goes by X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I would say, read the letters. They're really interesting. And it's just like an interesting thought of what, and one of the things I read of like what could be after this life, one of the things I read was he said in a later letter, I think in his last book or her last book, depending on who, she says the letters are by, like she actually says those books are by him and credits him as the author. But if you look up her, list of books, what's it called? It's like a discography, but like books.
Like her body of works.
If you look up her body of works, those are the 3 main ones: Our Letters from a Dead
Okay.
Man, War Stories or War Letters from a Dead Man, and Last Letters from a Dead Man.
Cool.
I think
To
in the
me, I would
last.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think in the last book, he says that your experience of heaven or of the afterlife is very much what you believe it will be while you're living. And he said, like, if you don't believe in God and don't believe anything, that you come to the heaven, but you basically are like in a sleep state until your next incarnation.
Wow.
So you kind of don't experience the in-between if you don't believe
So
in
we
it.
don't have to believe the larva part if we're worried about that part.
No, apparently,
Perfect.
no. You, listen,
I really don't want my heaven to have larva in it.
your heaven is,
It
apparently,
just seems
according to him, it's what you make
so
it.
invasive, I think. That's part of where I get really hung up on, like, entertaining the idea of this experience. It would feel so invasive to have somebody take over your arm or hand, and also to have them
Yeah.
telling you that you don't need so many clothes.
No.
And-
In the heaven, you don't need as many clothes.
Well, the
But
implication
he's
was
not
there.
the boss of me.
It reminded me of
He's like, we don't really wear as many clothes up here,
it
but
just
we're
made
still
me picture his
clothed.
voice like Patrick Stewart on that episode of The Extras, where he's like, and then all her clothes blew off.
You're like, oh my gosh, that was the best.
Oh, I loved that
Best
show.
Like, keep writing for me, and also I can see everything.
You beautiful young lady, you do not need clothes over here.
But that is not what he didn't say. She needed less clothes. He said they wore less.
And Emily, you would have been
clothes.
like, get away from me, you pervert.
I read between the lines, Mr. X.
If you would like to read these letters yourself, they are available for free on Project Gutenberg in the Internet Archive. I loved it. I was fascinated. I'm gonna read them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, Nettie.
Oh,
Thank you.
that
That
was
was so
so
fascinating.
good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you for joining me, sisters, on this beautiful journey.
It's just
Beautiful and spooky
just
journey.
given a lot to think about, like just really reflecting on this, like, wow.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe my strategy of not being sufficiently hydrated is suiting me just for the best in this life, serving me. Also, I pronounced vapid, like an idiot.
Like a vapor
Yeah.
or a vapor.
And I was like, I really hope a listener hears that and writes in a pronunciation guide for Emily.
I hope maybe they should.
Well,
Like she was so quick to correct Jeanette on saying posits. She's
And-
saying vapid.
and
instead of
Massachusetts.
vapid. And Massachusetts. I've got a few
And-
more, but I'm going to save them for when you're feeling less sensitive.
Shit. I'm always sensitive.
Emily, never then.
I'm so sensitive. Like, you'll be saving it for the astral realm. Love to meet you there.
And then Nettie just becomes an atheist because she just wants to nap the entire time, so she
Well, that
doesn't get a
sounds
talking
kinda
to.
nice. I would love a celestial nap, honestly.
Well,
Yeah.
he did say in one of his letters that he spends a lot of time doing, like, just letting his thoughts happen, that you don't have to do that. Like, you can definitely be busy, but that he, as like the people in that realm and in that existence, see us and what we're doing,
Mhm.
and they think that we make ourselves ridiculously busy and occupy ourselves with accumulating things that really have no value. And that, like, when you're in that life, you're like, why would I think any of that mattered?
And this was a time where he was looking at
Like clothes.
He was looking at a time where
Yes.
women were sent to the beach because they became too hysterical.
I know. He's like, ladies, you don't need so many clothes.
Lady, you are at the beach.
Stop collecting so many things you don't need, like clothes. Don't need them.
We don't have trunks here. Get rid of clothes.
Just at least not so many, ladies.
Listen, you have room for one see-through nightie. That's why ghosts
I
are
was
white
like,
and
does
transparent.
Does he mean like swim trunks or like clothing
He meant
trunks?
trunks, like suitcases.
I think he meant
people.
I
hauling
meant
around.
like suitcases.
I think so too, but I just was like, you don't swim?
Well,
No swimming up
my
there?
major takeaways: you can haunt where you want.
Yeah.
I can
Yes.
haunt any house I want. And you know what? No tour guide is going to say, no one's allowed in there to me if I'm a ghost. So Winchester House, here I come.
You know what kind of hurts my feelings though is that I'm not more haunted.
It's
mine's
your
too busy.
hydration.
And you're not hydrated. Your mind's too, yes.
Your mind's
Speaking
busy
of-
and you're hydrated.
Speaking of being
Also,
sensitive.
I think maybe if a
Haley's
ghost tried. Wait, what did
Haley's
you say?
feelings are hurt that we said her mind's too busy.
Oh,
And that she's not hydrated. I'm sorry, we're laughing at her.
No, I was talking about my feelings being hurt of not being haunted.
Oh, yes, because your mind's too busy and you're not hydrated.
I just can't relax. All
I
right.
just think if a ghost tried to take your hand and do anything without your consent, you would like karate chop the ghost.
He did tell her that,
Yeah.
that nothing would happen without her consent. He said that to her too. So the only reason he was able to even like write in the first place is that she was actually open to it.
Maybe I should resist. Resist less? No.
Well-
I'm too ornery for that.
A ghost will be like, I have so much to tell Haley. I know what the winning lottery numbers are. I just need her to relax for
And I
a
just plug my
minute."
ears and I go la 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 la.
And they're like, Haley, and you're like, no.
You can't tell me what to do.
They're like, we did make progress with that one older sister that can at least let us tell her which slot machine's about to pay out
I
for
did.
$40 or less.
Yes, it's only $40
Yeah.
at a time. Actually, I did win like 80 once.
Nice.
I'm so proud
Yes,
of
and
you.
one time I won 500 for the choosing a winning lottery ticket
Oh.
using my psychic touch.
I'm so proud of you.
Winning scratch ticket. No,
I
it
wish I
wasn't for
had
me. It
that.
was for the I chose it for the customer, and then he gave me
Yeah,
half
I'm
his
pr-
winnings.
I'm proud
You
of
can
you.
also do it with Rumacube. I know you felt the pull, and I can't do it. I try, and I got to try it again when I'm more hydrated.
I swear, one of the kids I'm working with has the ability, because we have been playing memory, like a memory matching game where you have to match the adult animal to the baby animal. So it has to be like a foal and a horse or a kitten and a cat. And that kid it's like if you get one, you get another turn. And he gets one almost immediately, and then he will just proceed to match every single one of them. And I'm like,
You've got a cheater on your hands.
Oh,
Is
no.
he setting up the game while
no, I'm setting it up.
while you look the other way?
I'm setting it up, and they are
But
not
you're letting him
see-through.
watch over your shoulder.
Then we stir them all up.
Okay, that's
I
funny.
swear, he's got the psychic
he's got the gift.
touch.
Awesome.
He knows
He's
it.
probably
He knows it.
hydrated.
Oh,
Yeah.
does he drink a lot of water?
Does he
Let
have
me
to
think
pee a
about
lot?
it for a minute. He
That
is
would
not
be the
one that
flip
takes
side of that.
water. I always offer for them to stop and get a drink at the drinking fountain on the way, and I don't think he is one that gets a drink.
Huh.
What a cutie, though. He's so cute.
Maybe he just really drinks a lot of water at home.
Maybe.
Well, Haley, you want to take us out?
Thank you for listening. Again, we are the Spooky Darlings. And if you have been possessed by a automatic writing ghost, just write us in at thespookydarlings@gmail.com.
Or have the ghost right in. This is a really good opportunity for ghosts.
Let the
to
ghost take
channel-
over and type for you to
Yes.
our email. And
Yes, please, listeners, allow yourself to channel a ghost and write us a letter. Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
And you can find us on our socials at the Spooky Darlings Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and we are now on YouTube. So go and check us out there. And if you have any spooky stories or fun stories of your own, just email us at thespookydarlings@gmail.com and we will catch you later. Bye.
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 You know what? I want to try automatic writing and report back.
5 stars.
Good job.
5 letters from ghosts.
5 ghostly letters. Oh my gosh, I love you so much.
The other word that you keep saying in case you aren't feeling sensitive.
I'm not feeling sensitive yet, but I have a feeling I'm about to.
You
Which
keep
one?
saying incidents instead of instance. Like an incidence is how often one thing repeats, and an instance is one time of something.
Yeah, I know.
But you are using it flip-flopped. You kept
Give
saying,
me
well,
an
and this
example.
incident earlier when you said that incidence. And a couple other times on earlier podcasts. You just said incidents instead of instance.
Are you sure that I don't just pronounce instance with an extra syllable?
You might. That could explain it.
Because I definitely know the difference between incidents and instance.
Oh, maybe you're just adding a
Hey,
little extra.
Incidents.
Sometimes
Incidents.
oh, she's Italian.
Listen,
That's
it's okay. I said vapid, not vapid. So
Emily's like, did mispronounce something once.
no,
20
I've
minutes ago.
pronounced
Emily
things
is-
incorrectly a lot of times.
Emily is the pronunciation police.
It's pronunciation.
I just feel like if I were saying something more than once the wrong way on a recorded thing that we're releasing, I would want somebody
Yes.
to tell me.
Tell me.
No, I'm glad you told me. I will listen back and I will report and let you
Okay.
know if I meant it or if I pronounced
I'm
it
going to hear
wrong.
you insert a new recording of yourself saying instance.
And in that instance, like that,
Yeah, like a robot. You'll be like, in that instance.
I'll be like, for incidents, he went. No, I'll replace it though with instance.
I don't think we should change a thing. Should we stop this recording?